All right, Deuteronomy 7, let's call this one Because You Listen. Why? Because that comes straight out of the text when God is helping them to understand the reasons why they are being blessed as they go into the promised land, and more importantly, some fictions they should not buy into about why they are being blessed. First and foremost, why they are not being blessed starts in about verse 7 when he says, "It was not because you were more in number than any other people that the Lord set his love on you and chose you, for you were fewest of all peoples." He's going to go on to tell them that it's also because he loves them and is keeping his promise to Abraham through them. But that doesn't cut them a pass, because he is warning them that they cannot covenant with the people of the land and intermarry with them, because as he's talked about before, that will become a snare to them. And he's going to remind them of that again in verse 4, where it says, "For they would turn your sons from following me to serve other gods. Then the anger of the Lord would be kindled against you, and he would destroy you quickly." Later on in the chapter, he is going to say it's actually because you listen, and as we've seen in previous chapters, because you are listening and doing. Verse 12 will say that. "And because you listen to the rules and keep and do them, the Lord your God will keep with you the covenant and the steadfast love that he swore to your fathers. He will love you, bless you, and multiply you." And he's going to go on to talk about how he will bless them. Not just how, but the degree to which in verse 14, "You shall be blessed above all peoples." And more importantly, he is going to calm their fears in verse 17. "If you say in your heart, these nations are greater than I, how can I dispossess them? You shall not be afraid of them, but you shall remember what the Lord your God did to Pharaoh and to all Egypt." And so as we've seen in chapters before, he's calling them to remember the success of the past, because they've got some frightening challenges ahead for them. And so understand the lessons for us. There are frightening challenges ahead of us. We cannot let those challenges dwarf past victories, especially to the degree those victories were in God. We can have confidence that he can get us through the next one. But understand, it's not just because of who we are, especially in modern times where we often hear just because we're Christians, the work is done, we've got nothing left to do. But the Bible does not say that. The Bible talks about Christ's work being finished and him being seated at the right hand of God. But John in his epistle, 1 John, will say in 1 John 1:7, "If we walk in the light as he is in the light," referring to Christ, "we have fellowship with one another, and his blood cleanses us from all sin." It's not an unconditional promise. It's premised on us walking in the light. And that concept, as we talked about in lessons past, of walking, goes back to this concept of doing. To the degree they did the things that demonstrated high character, God was with them, and he was going to uphold his promise to bless them. And likewise, with New Testament Christians, if we walk in the light, if we do the things that demonstrate high character, he is promising to cleanse us of all sin. Likewise, later on, 1 John chapter 4 is going to talk about perfect love casts out fear. And so he will allay our fears as well, to the degree, once again, that we are doing the kinds of things that he is counseling his people to do. One of the reasons why it's so important is because we live in an era of high confidence and low character. And so we find ourselves in the odd position of having to rehabilitate the church's character, as we too often in the church partner with stranger and stranger behavior, expecting to be lauded when God never made that promise. Much like the children of Israel, we have standards to uphold because his name is at issue. It's much like if you got the cure to COVID and you're the only one who has it, but you've got somebody across town who is advertising the cure to COVID, but they're just selling sugar pills. Steering people away from your name isn't just about your reputation. There's healing attached to people knowing where they can actually get the cure. And to the degree someone else is advertising a cure that just doesn't work, they're actually causing people harm. And that's why God's name and reputation are so important. It's because there is actual healing in his name and in his ways. But outside of that, there is no promise. And so to the degree we are walking in his ways, we have the promise of his blessings and his healings. Outside of that, we're on our own.